quiz tomorrow is over graphing reciprocal trig functions, and it's been a few days, so you're going to print off this worksheet if you didn't pick it up yesterday and go through them. I'm going to go through 2 of them just to kind of refresh your memory since, like I said, it's been a few days. I'm going to actually start with the second one, and if you recall, what we said was really the easiest way to go about doing this is we're going to change this to a cosine function, and we're going to graph that. So I've got y minus 1 over 2 equals cosine of x. And I'm not going to fill this information out down here until I graph it, since it's based on the secant and not the cosine. So the first thing I'm noticing, though, is I know I'm going to go up 1, and I don't have a phase shift left or right, so that's acting as my origin. Because I'm doing the cosine, I'm normally at my maximum, which is a 1, but I have an amplitude of 2. So it means I'm going to go up 2 units. There's no change in the period, so the end of that cycle would be there. Halfway in the middle, I'm 2 units below, and then that kind of helps guide me there. So the cosine graph looks like the following, but we're trying to graph the secant. So first thing we're going to do is anywhere I see a 0, which would be at this new asymptote, and the zeros, I'm going to draw in those asymptotes. And then we said you go to that maximum point, and there would be the first part of the parabola. Go to that minimum point, and that would be the second part of the parabola. Had more space, I could do the following. Now we can go fill in the max and min. So we don't have a minimum, we don't have a maximum. We did have an amplitude of 2, we did have a vertical shift up 1. Let's hold on to the asymptotes for just a second. We did have a period of 2 pi. There was no phase shift. Our domain goes along with our asymptotes, so let's hold on to that for a second. Our range, we are going from negative infinity up to this low point here, which is -1. And then we are going from this point here on up, which is 3 to positive infinity. Now let's go deal with the asymptotes. You can see the asymptotes are at negative pi over 2, pi over 2, 3 pi over 2. That means our asymptotes are k pi over 2, and k is an odd integer. And you might ask, how do I know when it's odd versus any integer? Well, go look at the examples that we had right here, and let me just write them out. We had -1/2, we had 1/2, we had 3 pi over 2, so none of them were 2 over 2, which reduces to 1 pi. Notice right there, we don't have an asymptote. So that means our domain is everything but what those asymptotes are. So we've got x cannot be equal to k pi over 2, again where k is an odd integer. Alright, let's go see if we can find one on the back that's maybe a little bit more difficult. Take a look at number 5, the tangent graph. So just super rough sketch. If this was my origin, this is roughly what the tangent looks like. Well, the first thing I'm noticing is I'm actually going to be going up 2, and I do have an amplitude of 1/2. So instead of being here, I'm here. There is no change in period, so that means my asymptotes are where they normally are, which is at pi over 2 and negative pi over 2. So let's go ahead and sketch those in. So this is actually, in terms of asymptotes, similar to the one that we did in the front. And then the next thing, if you think back at the parent function, we normally go over pi over 4 and up 1, because the coordinates at pi over 4 are both radical 2 over 2. But in this case, I have an amplitude of 1/2. So again, normally I would go over pi over 4 and up 1, but I'm just going up 1/2. Same thing here, negative pi over that point in the middle, pi over 4 up a half, negative pi over 4 down a half. So again, we have no min, we have no max. Our period for tangent and cotangent is just pi. We didn't have a phase shift. Our domain, again, is going to be related to the asymptote, so we'll get to that in a second. Our range is our y value, so that is negative infinity to infinity. And as I said, really these asymptotes are exactly what they were on the front side. They're at those x is equal to k pi over 2. K is an odd integer. So down here, x cannot equal k pi over 2, again where k is an odd integer. Alright, so you've got the rest to do. If you've got more questions, I will try and get up that answer key later on today, and I will be in my room